Hey guys! Thanks so much for joining me today as I create this colorful piece of artwork. So the other day, this mysterious package with a picture of an easel on the top arrived at my door, and it turned out it was from my sister. And I had no idea why she was sending me an easel, but when I opened it up, it turned out to be a light pad, a brand new, shiny, super smooth light pad. And I was really excited. I don't know how she found out that I needed a new light pad, but she must have seen on my Instagram stories that I had been posting that I was taping my rough draft to Windows and onto the screen of my computer to trace it onto the final piece of paper. So that probably gave her a hint that I needed a new light pad. But anyway, this one is really nice. I'll leave a link in the description to this particular light pad. I've only used it this one time, so I can't really recommend it to you guys. I don't know how long it lasts, but it worked pretty well for this one piece of artwork that I made. I'm still trying to figure out how the dimmer works on this thing. I sat here for a good minute trying to figure it out, and I was just not having luck. It was not intuitive to me, at least, but I think eventually I'll figure it out. It's okay. Anyway, here is my older light box, which was really clunky and not easy to use. And as you can see, the lights are just way dimmer than my new light box, and it was just nowhere near as good of quality, so I just was never using it. What you're seeing right now is the design process for this piece of artwork that I'm making, and I'm using Procreate, the Procreate app on the iPad Pro. And I love using Procreate because it automatically saves a time-lapse video for you. And so you can see kind of what my process was. Obviously, it was a whole lot slower than what you're seeing here. This is way sped up, but it gives you a little bit of an idea of kind of what I was thinking as I was designing it, the shapes I was trying to make, the flourishes and everything. And the quote says, "Where did you leave behind fragments of your heart? It is time to call them back to you and remember your wholeness." This is actually an original quote or a little mini poem of mine. Sometimes I like to write my own stuff, or at least I think it is. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say it quite like this before. So once I had printed out my design onto just a regular piece of copy paper, I set it up so that it was taped underneath the piece of paper that I wanted to use, which is Canson watercolor paper. I recently got this notebook of Canson watercolor paper and I'm pretty obsessed. I have been using it a lot recently, and I like keeping the pieces of artwork in the actual notebook instead of tearing out the pages. So it did make it a little bit awkward in terms of the placement of the notebook and the paper, but it worked out fine. So yeah, I'm just going to be here working on this piece of artwork. You can follow along with me. Before we speed up the footage so that it's not super boring to watch, let's just take a moment to appreciate how absurdly slow I am at watercolor lettering. This is not something that I'm very used to doing. In fact, this is probably my first time ever using my size 0 paintbrush, my size 0 round brush, to make watercolor lettering like this. So I'm just going really, really slowly to make sure I'm not making any mistakes because I'm quite a perfectionist when it comes to my letters. I feel a whole lot more comfortable using regular brush pens that do not have bristle tips. They just have, a felt or nylon tip. That gives me so much more control over the shapes of my letters. So I definitely wanted to make sure I took my time with this piece. In case you're wondering, I'm using 2 different brands of watercolor paints. So this really bright, vibrant pink color is from Daniel Smith, and then this orange and many of the other colors are from Viviva watercolor sheets, which they sent to me. The Daniel Smith colors that I'm using are new, and I bought them myself, and so I've just been trying them out a lot. Recently, I've gotten really into using watercolors for my lettering as opposed to brush pens. Typically, I use brush pens for lettering, but I'm just I'm going through a phase where I'm really into the textures that you get from watercolors, like the way it dries on the paper. Okay, so I'm sitting at my desk right now and I am working on this piece. I wanted to just show you what the setup looks like and show you a little bit of behind the scenes. So here is the piece of artwork that I'm currently working on, and you can see I've got my watercolor palette. So this is the design of the piece, what it's gonna look like. That's what I'm transferring onto here. You can kind of see it through here. And then underneath this, I've got my really clean looking watercolor palette. This is the palette that I use with my Viviva watercolor sheets. All right, back to voiceover now. I kind of just wanted to show you guys what things actually look like, because I don't know if I give you the false impression that as I'm making pieces of artwork, everything is neat and tidy on my desk and I have a whole lot of space, but that is so far from the truth. Everything is really cramped on my desk, and kind of a mess as I'm working on pieces of artwork. So I guess I wanted you to see what that was like. So anyway, I wanted to talk to you about this quote, why I wrote it, and what it means to me. And before we get deep about the meaning behind this quote, I also wanted to mention that this quote is really long, and a lot of lettering artists avoid doing long quotes because it's hard to fit in all of the text on one piece of paper. And so what I ended up doing was making a lot of the words really teeny, and that was kind of tricky. You definitely can read the text, but they're really small. So now on to the meaning behind the text. We live in a society where we can be a little bit more cerebral than heart-based at times, meaning what we are feeling, what humans are feeling, isn't always considered as important as what they're thinking. And this is good in some ways because we've made a lot of advancements in terms of science and technology, but in a lot of ways it kind of makes us become disconnected from an essential part of ourselves, which is our heart, our feelings, our emotions. I like to write quotes that bring people's awareness back to what's happening emotionally for them. And this quote specifically invites people to investigate, where have they left behind a part of themselves, a part of their heart, or where do they feel in their life they've lost or given away a piece of themselves. For me, what this refers to is any time in life when we didn't have the opportunity to grieve something fully, or we weren't able to fully forgive somebody else or ourselves, or maybe we've just held on to sadness or anger about something, and then we've kind of consciously forgotten about it, but whenever we think about that thing again, that feeling of anger or sadness is still there inside of us. And so there's this part of ourself that's trapped or locked away in those experiences of not being able to forgive, or not being able to fully feel that grief and move on from it. The metaphor of leaving a part of ourselves behind serves to draw our attention to the aspect of ourselves that need healing and care. I've realized over time that I can only experience the fullness of myself and my optimal vitality when I've reclaimed all of the parts of myself that I have pushed away, whether it was knowingly or unknowingly. So the quote says, "It is time to call the pieces of your heart that you've left behind back to you and remember your wholeness." Because in my experience, I've only been able to feel whole and feel complete when I've been able to heal the parts of myself that are hurting and need my care. My hope is that by sharing this quote with you and by sharing the process of creating this piece of artwork, I will inspire you to think about where in your life you could feel more whole and how you can call back the parts of yourself that maybe you've left behind somewhere. Another takeaway from this video is that using a high quality light pad is much more efficient than taping your artwork to a window and having to figure out how to transfer your rough draft onto your final draft of paper or your final piece of paper using that method. So yes, 100% would recommend using a light pad. Thank you so much to my sister for getting me this light pad and for making this video and this piece of artwork possible. And thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. That lets me know that you liked this content and want more content like it. Also, if you'd like to, you can feel free to subscribe to my channel. I make all sorts of art videos like this one, and I just do it for fun for now. So if you're also having fun watching these videos, just as I am having fun making them, then that's great. Join me on this journey and let me know what kind of videos you'd like to see in the future. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, friends.